Okay, so we've been going through the Circle Maker book. It's like a short series I've been doing. It's called The Circle Maker by Pastor Mark Batterson. It's back in 2003. It's called Praying Circles Around Your Greatest Dreams and Your Biggest Fears. So I'm sure God doesn't look like that, but he just kind of thought it was cool. The title of this sermon is called Pray Hard or Go Home. And it's kind of like, it's kind of a play on words of like, play hard or go home. But really what it talks about is your prayer life, which we've been, going over the last couple weeks. But this one's really challenging to me because I often wonder, when I pray, I have seen when I have really opened up to God, and I've seen Him answer prayer in a way that I just can't even believe. And then there are other days where I'm going through the motions, and I'm like, hi God, here's the grocery list. It's like your kids coming to you and going, yeah, hey Dad. You're like, hey, how's it going? Yeah, great Dad. I need this, and this. And you're like, well, wait a minute. Can I have a hug or something? Not you, Dave. I'll give you a hug. I'm glad I gave you a hug. Okay? So, it's kind of like that same thing. But there's a war going on. And you go, well, yeah, Steve, Afghanistan, Iraq, no. There is a spiritual battle that goes on all day, all night, 24/7, 365 days a year. There are things that are going on around us right now that we can't see. By the time I'm done the sermon, at least 2 of you will be asleep. By the time I'm done the sermon, in some way, shape, or form, he's going to try to use this construction out here to make everybody think about this and not what's being said. By the time I'm done the sermon, somebody's going to be daydreaming about something else, and they're going to be saying, oh, wow, I forgot about that, I need to do that. And all of a sudden, they're not paying attention to the sermon. It happens all the time. Why? Because there's a war going on. There is a fallen angel named Satan that can't stand us. And he does not want us to learn about prayer because this makes him nervous. And if you really understand the power of prayer, we're going to talk about it again today. If you really understand the power of prayer, get ready for a fight. The thing is, are we fighting? Are we warring? Are we on our hands and knees or laying out before God and asking Him night and day to be with us? Or is He just kind of a passing thing where He's like, how's it going, God? Listen, you know my needs. Take care of it. I prayed about all this stuff already. Oh, well, life is good. Oh, look at the squirrel. Oh, look at this one. Because I get in that mode. But it's when the crap hits the fan, is when all of a sudden we're down like this. God, no! No! Don't let it happen, God! No! You said you'll never leave us nor forsake us. No, God, don't take my child. No, God, don't let him go on drugs. God, I've got cancer and I can't get rid of it. I need your help to heal me. See, then we get serious. But until that point, everything else gets in the way, doesn't it? Life gets in the way. Well, Lord, I'm just praying for my health. And I'm just praying, Lord, you just take care of this prayer request. And you click. You go on to the next thing. But we have to start warring. We have to start fighting on our hands and knees. Because I'm telling you, I mean it. Every year that we start ramping up for Code Blue, and if you're not familiar with it, it's a program we do here in town where we make sure extreme weather, we bring in homeless people, we put them on a cot, We feed them, and we give them a place to stay for the night. And we have volunteers that do this. And every year, it's always around this time, as we get closer to it, that the attacks get tougher. They get tougher. And it takes hands and knees kind of combat. You know what I'm saying, guys? You will by the time we're done the sermon. All right, next one. Practice makes permanent is what my karate teacher used to tell me. So you usually hear practice makes perfect, right? He would say practice makes permanent. That's both good and bad. You have bad habits that you practiced over and over again. Guess what? They become a part of you, right? Right, Nicole? Am I eating? All right, so this is a neurologist that was quoted in Mark Batterson's, I think it was in his book. It says, the emerging picture from such studies is that 10,000 hours of practice is required to achieve a level of mastery associated with being a world-class expert in anything. In study after study of composers, basketball players, fiction writers, ice skaters, concert pianists, chess players, master criminals, and what have you, this number comes up again and again. No one has yet found a case in which true world-class expertise was accomplished in less time. It seems that it takes the brain that long to assimilate all that it needs to know to achieve true mastery. You guys are a neurologist. Don't go to the next grade. Don't do it. All right. I figured out in math 10,000 hours, and I divided it into 24. And it looks like about a year's worth of practice, like 24/7. So if you break that up, it's probably about a good 2-3 years. When you have things that are part of you, habits that you do, once they become ingrained in you, especially at an early age, it's hard to shake it, good or bad. If we build a prayer life and we learn how to say, this is the time that I'm setting aside to pray with God. This is my quote-unquote God time. Remember that say, Seth, we used to have our little family God time when the kids were younger. And we would sit around and we would talk about things. We would do a devotional, and then we would pray. Now, those prayers weren't award prayers, but they were our family praying together. Award prayers that I pray, and my wife and I pray, is either together or separate, that we pray in our private time. But they don't know all the ones where I hit the mat and was in tears, begging God to take away anxiety. Begging Him to get me straight somehow, that I can even get behind a wheel and drive around the corner. Begging Him to somehow, some way provide food for us. Crying out to Him and saying, Lord, I can't take this anymore. I'm losing my mind. Have you ever had a feeling like that? Like you just, like I've heard people talk about it, and they say, I'm about to lose my mind, and I know it's kind of like a cliche thing, it's like slang a little bit, but I'm talking about where you actually think like you're literally falling apart. Am I the only one? I had a day where I was in her bedroom, and my wife has this jewelry cabinet, and I remember looking at it, and as I was walking by, I literally felt like I was losing my mind. And I said to my wife, I said, I'm going to lose my mind. You hear this thing called a nervous breakdown? I think I was there. Now, this was probably 6 months ago, 7 months ago. And I literally felt like I was losing my mind. I was scared. I thought, here come the people with the white coats. They're coming to take me away. Ha! I mean, I really did. And it was scary. And I cried out to God. I'm like, Lord, you got to save me from this. Like, this isn't right. Something's not right. Well, He showed me what wasn't right. I wasn't on my hands and knees trusting Him. I was trusting me. And all life's problems started to overwhelm me. Everything started to overwhelm me. You ever been there? Well, prayer is where you do your battle. I don't care how young or old you are. If you learn this today, and we're going to have an exercise in it at the end, I guarantee you we're going to see it over the coming weeks. So before I go to the next screen, this next one's the video, right? Yeah. Before I go to the next screen, I'm going to need the lights. Before I go to the next screen, to kind of lighten it up a little bit, you guys know me. I'm a big Three Stooges fan. Okay? So, I thought to myself, you know what? I was talking to a friend of mine one day, and he said, you know, I wonder how long they practiced all that smacking and everything. And when you look at them, whether you're a fan or not, whether you don't like slapstick or whatever, I'm going to show you a 2-minute video shortly. But here's the thing. If you pay attention to how they time their hits, that didn't just happen overnight. They practiced it over and over and over again. The same thing for our prayer life. If we build it as something that is a priority to say, I need to talk to God, not a ritual that we just do. I'm talking about wanting to talk to God and setting that aside. So for the next 2 minutes, you're going to have a little humor in the sermon, okay? So, Seth, if you want to hit that.
Greeting cards, folks. Greeting cards. Greeting cards. Oh, give me the torch. Right. You imbecile. Go on, get busy. I got it. Good. An octopus. Leave him alone. If I thought you meant that, I'd like to see you do that once more. Remind me to kill you later. Go! Go! We want go! Soon! Come on! Hurry! What's the idea of going through a boulevard stop? Look at our fenders. Say, what's your operator's license? Why don't you say so? That's enough. Just as I thought. Drunk driving. Give him a ticket. One way or round trip. I got a one-way round trip. What's the matter? Wait a minute. I'll fix it. What's the idea of doing that? I need another hope so the water can go out. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Open your mouth and say ah. Ah.
That was for me, just saying. But did you see the timing of some of those hits? And whenever they would turn around and they would like, you know, knock heads together, or they would say certain things, they had to practice that a lot. I mean, a lot. And if you ever saw the new Three Stooges movie they did about 2 years ago, those guys couldn't compare. I mean, it was a good movie, but it was not what these guys were. And now these videos, or these shorts, were back from the 1930s. And they're still being shown today on TV. They practice. It was a part of them. The minute they got into their element and they started to perform in front of people, they just knew when to do what. When they would do that finger poke thing, if you slow it down, they actually hit right here. So it looks like that. But they have to back their head off just enough to make it look like a hit. Or when Mo would smack them, you know, they would do this, and then they would have like extra sound effects. But you had to time that just right. So here's what I'm saying. When we talk about prayer, it has to be an exercise that's done on purpose. It can't be, well, when I'll say my prayers before I go to sleep, and I lay me down to sleep, I pray the Lord my soul to keep. You know, if I should die before I wake tomorrow. All right? It's like this. Mark Batterson says in his book, it is a habit to be cultivated. It is a discipline to be developed. It is a skill to be practiced. And while I don't want to reduce praying hard to time locked, if you want to achieve mastery, it may take 10,000 hours. This I know for sure. The bigger the dream, the harder you will have to pray. Is prayer really any different? And essentially, here's the challenge. We've talked about this before, but some of you haven't heard this. Have you prayed for something bigger than you? Do you ever dream about something more than where you're at right now? Maybe you're just saying, I just survive. I'm just happy I get through the day. How about something so big out there that God has in your heart? And that one day that I put that video up about people writing, going up in New York and writing on that board their regrets, that video still resonates in my heart. And they wrote all these regrets of things they never did. And they stood there and looked at it and went, wow. Instead, it turns into what they call a bucket list, which means things you're going to do before you die. Why does it have to be that way? And why can't we ask God? Because we can ask Him for anything. Do we believe it? If it lines up with His will. You might be thinking to yourself, I'm never going to start a business. I'm always going to work for somebody. I'm never going to lose a ton of weight because I just can't do it. We're never going to get a kids' ministry off the ground. No, that's not true. Whatever that is, have you drawn a circle around it? Have you thought more than what you see? I was with a friend the other day and asked them to write down a list. And that person never really thought about past year. And it challenged them to say, yeah, I should be thinking past year. Some of the things I tell my family I'm praying about, my kids understand. My wife looks at me sometimes, she says, really? And I'm like, yeah, really? I'm going to pray. I'm going to put my wish list out there and see what happens. I'm going to keep at it. Yeah, it may not look like we can do any of that right now, but you have not because you asked not. For His will to be done, we need to be on our knees praying. I prayer walk a lot. But there are times that your posture of your heart is what He's looking at. There are times where you hit that floor and you're face first. And just saying, God, I need you. I need you. And that's exactly where He wants us. Next slide, son. This is in Luke chapter 18. And if you have your Bibles, you can turn to it. Or follow along with me, or try to read it. This is your eye test again. It's chapter 18. It starts with verse 1. And the situation is this. Jesus has given a parable about prayer. And He's talking about the importance of it. He's talking about why we should do it. Don't give up. So take a look at this with me. This is the Amplified version. So there's anything in parentheses is an add-on to kind of explain a little more. It says, now Jesus was telling the disciples a parable, which is like a story, to make the point that at all times they ought to pray and not give up and lose heart. Saying, in a certain city, there was a judge who did not fear God and had no respect for man. There was a desperate widow in that city, and she kept coming to him and saying, give me justice and legal protection from my adversary. For a time he would not. But later he said to himself, even though I do not fear God nor respect man, yet because this widow continues to bother me, I will give her justice and legal protection. Otherwise, by continually coming, she will be an intolerable annoyance and she will wear me out. Then the Lord said, listen to what the unjust judge says. And will not our just God defend and avenge His elect, His chosen ones, who cry out to Him day and night? Will He delay in providing justice on their behalf? I tell you that He will defend and avenge them quickly. However, when the Son of Man comes, will He find this kind of persistent faith on the earth? Here's what I want you to see out of this. It's not a matter of if we bug God good, enough, He's just going to give us what we want because we can manipulate God. Because when I read that, I thought, ooh, that kind of sounds like that. But in essence, it's not what Jesus was saying. It's a total reliance on Him, not us. If you're in this room right now, well, you should be. If you're, just say it again, for those of you in the room, if you're depending on you and not God, you're in the wrong spot in life. If you think that by doing it on your own, that you're going to accomplish whatever you're going to accomplish, you're in the wrong spot. Now, that doesn't mean we just sit down and just say, God, you do it all. But what it does mean is our utter dependence should be on Him. And that word supernatural, He puts the super in the natural. And without Him going before us, we make a mess. And what you see out there in the world is many messes. And people are, I told you before, people are working jobs they have no business being in. Why? Because they didn't pray about it. That's not where their gift is. But they're chasing the dollar. Well, if I just work a little bit more, I can do this. Maybe I'll skip this or not do that or do this. Give and it will be given unto you. Follow the word. And this has become more of an alienated message that people are going, nah, it's foolishness. That wizardry book, that invisible God they worship needs that anymore. And then coming generations are coming up that say, church, what's that? What's that building there? And then we wonder why we're in the mess we're in. Why is it that Christian marriages have no better success rate than non-Christian marriages? Oh, that drives me nuts. And before anybody throws a stone at me, my wife and I were both married previously before we got married. And I'm not saying it's a perfect formula, but I am saying this. We, for those who are believers, have got to start calling on God to be a center of our marriage, or center of us. Now, I don't want to go on a sidetrack about marriage, but it ain't about us. When you go into a marriage, and you're going and saying, what am I getting out of it? You're already in the wrong camp. I'll just stop there. But I'm saying, Jesus is saying here that this judge was kind of saying, all right already, I'll give you what you want. He's saying, now how much more will God answer our prayers and avenge us who cry out to Him day and night? And there are some times where He'll let it go for a while. Why? Because the next slide will tell you. Good, son. Pray through. This parable shows us what praying hard looks like. Knocking until your knuckles are raw. Crying out until your voice is lost. Pleading until your tears run dry. Praying hard is praying through. And if you pray through, God will come through. Two people. Amen. There you go. Next slide. Why do we have to pray so hard if God already hears our prayers? Is it like He's going to turn up the hearing aid because He's the Ancient of Days? No. Is it because maybe He's in a galaxy far, far away and He can't hear us? No. God knows our needs. God knows our desires. God seeks our well-being. But when we pray, we open our souls up to encounter this God. When we pray, we create a God space within us that helps us to see ourselves more clearly. That helps us to be more aware of our own need, our own dependence. That helps us to face the road ahead with faith because we have opened ourselves to that divine presence. And when we do that, we find that we are transformed. The prayers we pray to get what we want do not change our lives as much as opening ourselves up to the God who can transform those very lives. And being transformed ourselves, we become agents of a transformation of the world itself, changing it into the very thing we would have prayed for. It tests your heart. If you've ever started working out, or you're challenged with something in your life, and you got to go through it. Let's just say you're changing your eating habits. Or let's just say you're changing your exercise habits. Or you're starting a new job. Or a new adventure in some way, shape, or form that's very foreign to you. But it's going to test you. a new college, and you start something new. You're not familiar with it, but you know you need to go through it. You're going to be tested very, very quickly. The enemy is going to throw everything he's got at you to stop it. I've told you guys this for a long time. The same thing happens here. 1 minute, we got 50 people. Next minute, 20. Do I drop the mic and just say, well, there isn't enough people today, I don't preach? It's the same as if we had a full auditorium versus not. It's the same whether you're a backup quarterback on a football team, you practice the same way as if you were starting. If you think that you're not a boss of a company, but so you don't have to perform as much, no. Our level of excellence or putting our foot forward should be the same all the way around. And the same thing exists in our prayer life. Remember, guys, I'm not saying about, he was talking about logging time. Okay, I spent 15 minutes today praying. Okay, good. Got all my prayers in. Okay, next. Because I catch myself doing that. I do. I mean, I'm like, the dogs are like walking around with me, and Cole just follows me everywhere. And Chloe just lays right in front of the path, and I have to step over her. She's a Great Dane. And, and I'm like, yeah, I got that. Oh, wow, I got to do this, and this, and this. I can get my laptop out and call this person, whatever. And I have totally negated the real reason I'm out there praying. And God's saying, I've got it all. But I want you. I want your time. That old picture of Uncle Sam? And he would go like this. Well, picture that being God. That's what he wants. And he's so jealous for our time that he will allow things to happen until he finally gets your attention. And unfortunately, sometimes we let that go so low that we hit rock bottom before we finally say, no, that hurts. All right already, Uncle. But if we knew and understood who this God that we worship is, we should be on our hands and knees saying, thank God you spared me. Thank God you love me. Thank God that you rescued me. But instead we put him as the last part and we put everything else as the first part. But the batting order should be the other way around where he should be first. I'm telling you right now that if we had another 9/11 today, this place would be filled. It would be filled. We would have chairs all the way in the back and everything. And within a month after that, when so-called safety is returned, it would look exactly where we are today. Because everything else is important, isn't it? I'm telling you, our country is in deep trouble. I don't care who you vote for. I'm not in here to talk about political platform. Our country is in deep doo-doo right now. And if we as people don't get on our knees and start humbling ourselves and ask God to forgive the things that we have turned our back on with him, we're in a world of hurt. And the paint train is coming. It's coming. And I'm hoping that that's not the reason why this thing fills up. Maybe it needs to happen. I mean, think about it. When you correct a child isn't going to listen to you and go, oh, little Johnny, I'm going to put you in timeout. But you smack him on the rear end a couple times, then they know who's boss. At least that's the way it should be. And the bottom line is, then they think twice about putting their hand on that outlet. Why? Because you know that thing will kill them. But that's mean. He knows that we're nothing without him. He gives us choice of whether we worship him or not. But at the end of the day, he is not going to be mocked. And if we don't start spending time and logging time praying and talking to God, we're going to feel it. And I know, because I labor through it sometimes, a lot. I labor through it. When I'm feeling like really good, And I'm like, oh, God, I feel like he's walking right next to me. It's amazing. But man, when I'm walking and like this dirt path we wore out in the backyard, we haven't got rain in weeks. And that dust now is literally kicking up in my face. And I'm like, oh. You know, like I remember that dirt kind of feeling when I was in Israel. It was the same way. I'm like, God, please, can it rain? Can it rain? I'm looking at the weather, I'm like, tomorrow, maybe, yes, you know. But the bottom line is, it's that laboring through. Jesus himself, the night that he knew he was going to be taken, was sweating blood, knowing that he was going to die for the sins of the world. He knew what the importance of prayer was, and he is the Son of God. Now, on this side of the earth, he had human form as well. But he was showing us, where is our battle? Where is our fight? Or do we think church is a country club? The war is going to be won on our knees. And I'm going to tell you something. The ladies in this church that get together and pray, last week at my house, I think the roof got blown off. Now I'm hoping that the men will eventually come together and do this. But the women were blowing the doors off my house. And I just was in an utter amazement. And I thought, man, the roof is gone. I'm going to have to get a new roof. Here it goes. Boom. It was just an amazing breakout of the Spirit. I know people like Marjorie who, I mean, you know, I watch her spirit and how she can go into his presence in a heartbeat because she's practiced for years. Their relationship has been cultivated over time. That doesn't mean that she's some super spiritual hero. Anybody can do it. The question is, do you want to? How close do you want to get to God? How close do you want to be to him? You can be as close to him as you want, but the more that you are, the more that push. And for those who go through physical training, if you go to a gym or something, you know that when you go in there, there's going to be a certain amount of pain you're going to get. And if you don't go through the pain, no gain. So when you pray, I'm not saying it has to be a painful experience. I'm saying that when you pray, there's going to be things that are going to draw you away from it. You're going to be thinking about things. Maybe you can't, like me, quiet my mind sometimes, where you're thinking about so much that you can't quiet your mind. Like, I gotta trade in my man card. I mean, last night I was sitting on the patio and I had this little lavender candle. All right? And I was like, oh, that was good. And I'm sitting there listening to Joyce Meyer, okay? I was thinking, oh, wait a minute, I got to get some football in me or something. And I'm listening to her talk about overload, about de-stressing your life. And it was just like, I had a quiet moment. The dogs were laying next to me. The girls went out and you know, we're doing the grocery shop and stuff. Seth went out with his friends. And I was like, me and the dogs, God, here we are. And I felt like for a moment, I actually relaxed. And I have to do that more often because if I don't relax, if we don't relax, we're so wound up that how in the world can we pray? How in the world can we actually go through life on an empty tank constantly? Moving, working, doing. Moving, working, doing. And eventually, that catches up with you. Now, if you think I'm just blowing smoke at you, I just told you that not even 6 months ago I almost lost my mind. So you want to continue to push the envelope and keep going, have at it. But all I know is, he brought me to a place where I said, oh my God. And he says, yes. And if I didn't start right then and there to say, something's got to change fast, God, I need you, I don't know if we'd be having church today. I really don't. That's how close I was. Guys, I'm not telling you this to beat you up. I'm telling you this because I'm begging you, all of us. We need to have a close time with God, an intimate time with him, reading his word, and then being able to pray and just talk to him. And if we don't do that, one at a time we get picked off. And everything else starts to become more important. And then before you know it, where is everybody? Oh, they've all done their own thing. In the meantime, the world spins and burns. Next slide, son. Desperate enough to pray through the night. I should say the title, How Desperate Are You for the Miracle? Desperate enough to pray through the night? How many times are you willing to circle the promise until the day you die? How long and loud will you knock on the door of opportunity until you knock the door down? Is there some dream that God wants to resurrect? Is there some promise you need to reclaim? Is there some miracle you need to start believing for again? The reason that many of us give up too soon is because we feel like we have failed if God doesn't answer our prayer. And that isn't failure. The only way you can fail is if you stop praying. I'm going to give a little bit of attention to my son here, Seth. From the time he was little until the time even now, we would have our little God time. The only thing he knew how to pray for was a trip to Disney World. You couldn't get him to pray for anything else, maybe a dog. But he prayed, that was the only thing he prayed for. And we used to tell him as we were teaching him, you know, and Sarah would be like, come on. He would be laying on the couch going, go ahead, Seth, go ahead, pray. Pray for Disney. I want to go back to Disney. You know, and that's what he would do. He would lay there on the couch. Yes, it's embarrassing sometimes, okay? And he would lay on the couch and do this. And we would all pray for other things, and Sierra and Henry and I, we would be like, okay, Lord, you know, we pray for this and everything else. Seth, what is it today? Disney. And every time. Every time. Do you know that I believe that he's the reason why we went on so many trips? Because every trip that we did, we had no debt. The money came from weird resources that we never could imagine. And it was like every other year we were going. It was the only thing he prayed for. And he was like 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old at the time. And he still tells me right now, he's like, Dad, when we go back, not if, when. And I'm looking at the circumstances, I'm going, you know, gas money, Disney. And he's going, oh, Dad, we're going again. And you know, I caught wind of that, and I said, you know what, you're right. I don't know how. I don't know when. But we're going to do it again. And of course, my wife's like, oh my God, not another one, not another trip. But he believes. It's something he refuses to give up on. And he believes that God will do it. Now, if it's God's will, yes. If it is not his will or not his timing, that's a different story. But God never said, don't ask me this. I've heard people come to me and they said, you know what? I'm not supposed to ask for money. God never, you know, he doesn't ask, you don't ask God for money. And I said, listen, I'm not saying that you say, oh, I want $1 million because of your heart being wrong. But I am saying, if you need money for resource to live, God never said, don't ask me for money. Or I don't pray for myself. That's a bunch of you know what. We should be praying for ourselves. We got to be praying for others as well, but we need to pray for ourselves. That's the whole idea. Because there is a job that he has for all of us here. He has a job for all of us on this earth. What that is, he will reveal over time. But he has a job and a place for us before we are done. When our job is done here, if we have completed it, and we bow our knee before him, he's going to say, well done, good and faithful servant. But if we've told him, and he says, what'd you do with all the gifts I gave you? Well, I was on Facebook, and I was watching the Eagles game, and I was doing this and that. He says, that person over there was supposed to be helped. What'd you do with them? Well, I don't really give money to poor people because they usually use it for drugs, and and excuses after excuses after excuses. It's not going to work. It's not going to happen. And that's what I'm saying about prayer. Are we fervent to believe in the impossible that he's going to do? Are we warring over it? Are we coming in like a ninja and fighting for what's ours? Because Satan doesn't want us to have it. And I'm not just talking monetary and material things. I'm talking about the destiny that God has for you. Understand this. Jesus, or God has a path right here for us. And right immediately, if these guys were standing up, picture them being Satan, standing right there saying, no, you don't. Oh, I don't. Frank, stand up for me real quick. Great illustration. Big Frank. And God says, you need to go there. That door is where you need to be. Okay, I walk toward it and but I can't do that, God. I can't do it. I can't do it, God. I'm going to try again. Here we go. Son, depend on me. Okay. In the name of Jesus. God, I just ask, Lord, that you do the impossible. I need a breakthrough. You've got a job for me. I need you, Lord. God, your spirit needs to go before me. I can't fight this alone. This Goliath is too big. And that's where he comes in and puts his hand aside and says, now let's walk. Let's move. There'll be more obstacles all along the way of life. There'll be more things that get thrown at you. And sometimes it'll be big roadblocks, and sometimes it'll be very subtle. Sometimes there'll be little things just to distract you. It's funny that honesty comes in on this. She said to me the other day, we got a war. We got a fight. That video you had of those two ladies, that couldn't have been a better description. I would put that up there. It's a fight. It's a war. There are a war for souls out there. Your soul. If you don't know Jesus, there is a fight going on right now. And if you know Jesus, let him fight the battle. Don't do it in your own strength. Or he's going to continue to allow things to happen until you finally say, I give up, Lord. It's you. That looks like weakness. But in essence, it's strength. Throw the towel in. Throw it in. The Jesus towel. Let him fight it. But you got to fight it with him, through him, on your knees, praying, laboring, going through it saying, God, I need you. I cry out to you. If you read the Psalms, David was a master at it. I looked at the other day a lot of the end lines of the Psalms, and David always ended up with something like this. He may say, God, where are you? God, you're amazing. God, I have no clue where you are. My enemies are coming. But he would always end it with something like this. But I know that you're my rock and redeemer. But I know that you will deliver me. I'm sitting there looking at it the other day. I'm like, look at this, honey. I showed you. And I'm looking at it. Every sentence, I don't remember ever reading something that he said, well, I guess you're not showing up. He always knew. And you know what? He had oil poured on him at a young age, and he was told that he was going to be king by Samuel. Now, I don't know if he remembered that time, but that was confirmation that he was going to be king. And lo and behold, Psalm 18 was written, where Saul finally dies, and David becomes king. But 10 years he was on the run. 10 years that he wrote many of those Psalms. And some days he was up here, and some days he was down there. Those prayers, those songs, were prayers. The Song of Ascents. They used to pray them and sing them walking up the temple steps. There's quite a few steps because I was there. Singing them. Singing prayers. That's where the battle is going to be won. Are you with me, guys? That's what we're going to win as a church. So, again, how desperate are you for the miracle that you need? Next slide. He's old enough to. Yeah. So, 4 ways God answers prayer. Now, I don't have the time to go into these actual scriptures, but you might want to write them down. The first one is yes, when God says, yes, I answer. Mark chapter 1, verses 40 to 43 and 45. These are kind of like little notes that I wrote down. In this story, the person came to Jesus asking, he says, if you will. Jesus was moved with compassion, and the result was glorification of God. So you're going to see that there's going to be times you're going to pray for something, and God's going to move on it immediately. But then you get the next one, David. Not yet. 2 Chronicles chapter 20. There was a story about King Jehoshaphat. He was scared out of his mind. He had 3 other armies coming at him, and he literally was freaking out. And he was crying out to God. It says here, sometimes only by marching through it do we learn what we need to learn. Jehoshaphat was trying to smooth over God in his prayer, but he attempted to inform God of what he needed. He basically told him, God, in order for me to do this, I need this. I've done that, haven't you? I need this, this, and this in order to do that. I'm king at telling God what to do. We don't need to do that. And just because it looked like he didn't answer it doesn't mean the war was over. But because of obedience, and it says in there, wait and watch me do it, that's a huge one. It's like if I get antsy about something, I immediately start going, oh, maybe we should just do this. And instead of stopping and praying and then letting that happen and unfold, I jump. Need the next slide here. Or I have something better in mind could be an answer. Daniel 3:16 is the scripture reference. The fire is part of my plan. Uses the flame to burn off the things that bind us. Using the flame to invite the presence of the Lord. God can be with you in the middle of the flame. And if God is with you in the middle of the flame, it cannot and will not bother you. I think this reference is when he was in the lion's den. I noticed that he never talked about having a panic attack during that time. Never had anxiety. And yet somehow, some way, I'm sure he prayed for an answered prayer immediately. He didn't answer right away. It said that he spent the night there. He protected him during it. Next slide. And the last one is, I can't answer your prayer because you're outside the covenant. And the reference is Jeremiah 14:7. Can't go to God saying, forget about my iniquities or my sins for a blessed moment and just bless me anyhow. If your heart's not right and you're not right with God, it's going to really put a hindrance in your prayer life. And in order to do that, we have to empty ourselves out to say, okay, I need you, God. I need you, Lord. I repent of, and start to open up your heart to Him. Now, here's what I'm going to say out of all this. So, one more slide was of it. That's it. This is what I want to do. This is something I learned at my old church. I'm going to take these cards, okay? And I'm going to ask a couple of the ushers to come up and grab them. They're going to give you this card. Now, I don't need you to fill out where it says name, address, address, phone number, email, and all that. All I need you to do is put the following on there. I want you to write a name on there of someone who doesn't come to church here that needs to come to church here. And this is what's going to happen. I don't need you to write your name and say it's by me or whatever. Just write the person's name. When you're done, what we're going to do is we're going to collect the cards, mix them up in an offering basket, and then redistribute them to everyone. Once we do that, you're going to get a name that you hopefully didn't write. We're all going to keep these cards, and our job is to pray over them. I'm going to get a card too. And I'm going to watch and see. We're going to see how God's going to operate. We're going to specifically pray for someone that we know, we're affiliated with, that we say, we want this person to come to church. Because what we're going to do is we're going to practice, we're going to put this sermon into practice. And it may take a while, but if we're diligent and we're specific about it, watch and see what God does. And we probably should do this next week too, where people will hear a little more. Just take a second to write down a name. And then we'll collect them. Yeah. We're going to be specific. You just pray for Joes, 10,000 Joes. Somebody that you know. Between the prayer app, there's Facebook, there's other ways of getting connected. We've got to be praying for each other. We've got to be connecting as a church. I really believe the app is going to be a huge thing if we use it. But there are ways that we can pray for one another, pray for prayer requests. Something comes up, we need to let people know. And we can keep it anonymous or whatever. But the bottom line is we need to be praying more for each other and for situations that come up. Okay, so as they're getting collected, we're going to kind of mix them up and then redistribute them. While that's going on, I want to kind of close on this note. I had no idea the power of prayer until probably about 4 to 5 years into my walk with God. And then after that, and I started seeing these scriptures and talking and learning more about prayer and about what it really was. It was amazing to watch God answer things that were just way beyond me. Way beyond me. And to this day, there are things that I have in my prayer life and I'm going, okay, Lord, this is way out of my hands. You got to do this. I have been praying about several things recently, and just way out of my hands. And even if it was in my hands per se, I still want Him to go before me. Because if I do it, I'll mess it up. So if you want to, please, redistribute. So everybody take a card, just one card. Okay. Now this isn't bingo. All right. Hey, I got this person. I know him. And just keep that to yourself, okay? But keep this card. And you hang it up on your a private wall or something or whatever. Keep that card, and every day you get a couple minutes to just pray for that person. Pray for their salvation and pray for them to come. I need a card too, please. You good with me? But I'm gonna say it again because some ladies are in the room here that didn't hear this. The ladies' prayer that happened in my house Tuesday night was just amazing. And we have some powerful prayer warriors in our midst. But we need men, we need people in general to step up and start to join them. That's how the battle's going to be won. Hey, it's Tamara. I'm just kidding. Keep it in a safe place. Make sure to pray for this person, whoever you got. And if you just say something like this, Lord, I just thank you and praise you because I know, Lord, that you're going to deliver this person. There was a reason why I got this name, and I'm just asking in Jesus' name that they come to church. Whether you're the one to bring them or not, doesn't matter. But I've watched this exercise go on in Gloucester for years, and I've seen a lot of people come through the doors because of it. Because Pastor Bruce has challenged the people. It's one thing to say we're going to pray. It's another to say let's do it intentionally. And all I'm asking for is just one name. Just focus on that one name. And then when that person comes in, you're going to be coming up to me and going, guess what? Guess what? That's the person. And we're going to see this place grow. So you say to yourself, well, that's great, but I don't even know about this Jesus that you talk about. Well, let me tell you that Jesus can be your best friend if you choose him. He's chosen you. The question is, do you choose him? It is not about your religious background. It is not about being perfect by a long shot. It's not a matter of whether or not, I've done too many wrong things and can't be forgiven. He's coming before you right now and he's saying, come to me. Believe. Trust me with your life that I've given. You say, well, how do I do that? Well, we say here at MCC, it's easy as ABC. So much that a child can figure it out. And you got to get the truth about yourself, that your sin separates you from holy God. That means that we're not perfect, and he is. And that means that everything that we've done wrong, we have to have an account for. B, we believe that God did something about that problem because we are in a sinful world that we've been born into. And he gave us Jesus Christ, which means that Jesus died on the cross to pay for our sins so we don't have to. And C, it is me to commit our lives to following him all the days of our life. It's one thing to believe, it's another to make that commitment and say, I'm going to walk it out. And that is a process. And then we slide a D in here that says, do it today. Because you don't know when your last day will be. So, I'm going to ask that we close in prayer. Bow your heads. And if you don't know Jesus, you can say something like this in your heart. Father in heaven, thank you for loving me. Thank you for sending Jesus to die for me. I'm sorry, I'm a sinner. I realize that now. And I need you, Lord. Come into my life, Jesus. Be my Lord and Savior. And for those of you who know him, it's time to cry out to him. It's time to cry out to him. It's time for us to start getting really serious now. And I ask in Jesus' name, Lord, that your people, all of us, will be warring in the war room. That will be fighting those battles on our knees when you go before us. God, in Jesus' name, I just pray that your saints will move forward, to march forward, and to retake what was lost. Souls, communities, families, to restore not only this land, but the world. We need you, Lord. We can't do this by ourselves. In Jesus' name, amen. I don't think we have it set up, but we have, you can sit in these front seats. But we have like a couple chairs usually out that we call the war room. And we have some people called prayer warriors that would be more than happy to pray with you. So if you're in need of prayer or want to pray for somebody next to you, just put like